As I get older and I read more and more history and I just get life experience, I find this meme more and more accurate. For those of you who aren't aware, the meme basically goes like this: you have the low IQ person who says one thing, the mid IQ person who disagrees with the low IQ person, and the high IQ person who agrees with the low IQ person. And it's kind of this idea that the really dumb people and the really smart people get it. And in a certain sense, I think that that is true. I think there is a tendency to equate intellectualism and being smarter with making things very complicated and hard to understand. A lot of the most profound truths in the universe are very simple. They're very straightforward. Sometimes by saying a sentence, you can say as much as can be said in an entire book. Not that I have anything against exhaustive studies, but I think there can be a tendency, and if you've been through university, you probably know what I mean, to equate something being very technical, hard to understand, overly nuanced, unwilling to come to any conclusions with being intelligent, and someone who just takes kind of a more straightforward opinion is naive, they're stupid, they're gullible, they just don't get it. Likewise, I think there's a tendency to equate cynicism with intelligence and having an extremely jaded view of the world that goes beyond just kind of how you think it is, but getting into how it ought to be. And one of these things for me is honesty in government. Honesty, sticking to your word, honoring agreements, and things like that. And that's something that I guess if you're like low IQ and you had a decent Christian upbringing, you're like, well, you have to tell the truth, you have to honor your agreements, you have to do what you said you're going to do. Honor matters. And then I guess kind of once you get into kind of the middle group, it's like you backstab whoever, politics is nihilistic, it's a zero sum game, the international relations is complete chaos. You just have to do whatever you can to get a temporary advantage. But once you kind of go beyond that and you think about it long enough, you start to realize that while that might be true in the short term, there are a lot of long term consequences for being a snake. There's a lot of long term consequences for constantly lying, violating treaties, refusing to deal squarely with people. And it can often come back to bite you. And this is true in business where no one trusts a snake. Eventually, something's probably going to happen to you. You're going to screw the wrong person, or somebody's going to come out to get you. And people just won't trust you and they won't do business with you. And if you do business with them, they're going to ask for collateral up front. They're going to charge you ruinous interest rates. And the first second they have to turn on you, they will. And now you have the old Machiavellian thing: is it better to be feared or loved? And I think it's better to be loved. Because if you're loved, you don't have to worry as much that everybody's going to stab you in the back as soon as you turn it. If people are scared of you and they see you as a threat, the first chance they get, they're going to take you down. And this was something that was fairly prevalent during the Middle Ages, where you would offer a army that was defending a castle an opportunity to surrender, and it was very important that you kept your word. If you promised them safe passage, you let them out and gave them safe passage. It was considered a horrific crime to kill people after they had surrendered in good faith. But there's also a practical aspect to this. If you were going to, if you don't keep your word and you just kill them anyways, then there's no one's going to surrender to you. You're never going to get anybody to give up. No one's going to trust you. They aren't going to sign treaties with you because they know that you're just going to completely violate them, throw them out of the way, and they can't trust you. The reality is, for a lot of people, and this is true in your personal life as well as when it comes to countries and statesmen, all you really have is your word. All you really have is how people perceive you. Whether they think you're a good person, you're a bad person, whether you're trustworthy or untrustworthy, whether you're competent or incompetent. And I think to a certain extent, a lot of us have just kind of given up. And I know I'm in this category, but we just expect to be lied to, and we expect politicians and military officials and whoever to not tell us the truth. That we have kind of come not just to expect it, but to accept it and to just kind of say, oh, lying's okay. Just blatantly being dishonest, getting people involved in shit, wasting all kinds of public money. This is kind of, I think, seen as acceptable behavior. And if anyone goes, hey, that's a lie, that's dishonest, dishonesty's bad, people will say that person is naive, that person's stupid, that person doesn't get it because I'm smart, I'm cynical, I'm jaded, and I have this view of the world. And I'm not trying to make fun of these people because I'm very much like that, but I'm just trying to look at this from another point of view. That there is real consequences to all of this stuff. It may not be now, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be in a couple of years, but if you are in this position, then it's, I mean, there's the boy who cried wolf. Eventually, people are no longer going to trust you. So, this, I actually thought when I heard somebody report on this, that this was just something like pro Russian trolls had come up with. I was like, there's no way that this is real. There's no way that, like, this would, someone would actually say this and expect people to take it seriously. Or if they did, it's like some random blogger or some blue check mark on Twitter. But no, this is the chief of the Joint Chief of Staff, the guy who speaks on behalf of the U.S. Army, on behalf of the U.S. President. And we'll talk a bit about Mark Milley because he, from what little I know of him, he may be the most incompetent military leader in I since General Custer. His takes are subglacial. It's like they're colder than the glaciers. They're like back before the sun even exists and the Earth was just, I don't know, a piece of like an asteroid or something. They're like that. They're close to zero. But this is what he said, and this is not from a while back. This is from 2 days ago. And this is not some crazy pro-Russian site. This is the Daily Mail, which is a pro-Ukraine Tory-leaning site, but also the Guardian. I just want you to listen to this. I just want you to see. This is what the official representative of the U.S. government, who's on stage with the defense secretary, is saying.
NATO and this coalition has never been stronger, and Russia is now a global pariah, and the world remains inspired by Ukrainian bravery and resilience. In short, Russia has lost. They've lost strategically, operationally, and tactically, and they are paying an enormous price on the battlefield.
Okay, just give that a second to think. Let's just listen to that again, just because I thought I misheard that.
Take different routes. NATO and this coalition has never been stronger, and Russia is now a global pariah, and the world remains inspired by Ukrainian bravery and resilience. In short, Russia has lost. They've lost strategically, operationally, and tactically, and they are paying an enormous price on the battlefield.
So this is the head of the U.S. military. This dude who thinks that Russia's lost the war. I mean, the war's still very much up in the air. It could go either way. I personally think that from what I've seen, Russia is on the ascent at the moment, but it's still very much anybody's ball game. Russia could screw up and make a stupid offensive and lose a whole bunch of tanks. Ukraine could get lucky with a bunch of GPS missiles and blow up some key ammo dumps. The global oil price could crash. This thing is far from over. At least it appears. I mean, some people think that it's going to collapse one way or another. But at the moment, you do still have a Ukrainian army that is fighting quite aggressively and quite stalwartly against an increasingly superior Russian force. This isn't like in Afghanistan where The Afghan National Army put up absolutely no fight, immediately collapsed and ran away with like buckets full of cash. It's not even like the late Vietnam War when it was pretty clear that things were crumbling. Maybe things will crumble, but regardless of whether you're pro Ukraine or you're pro Russia, or you think Russia's going to win, or you think Ukraine's going to win, or no one's going to win, I don't see how any person who's followed this conflict at all can look at it and say Russia has lost, not just like strategically, but tactically. That they like, I guess tactically in this context means Bakhmut. They've lost Bakhmut. Now, I can see like if they want to say that Russia's failed to meet their strategic objectives, that they should have done a lot better, that the fact that this wasn't resolved sooner was a complete failure for them, that it was a humiliation, that maybe that was a loss. I could see them say Ukraine's going to win in the long term. It's a losing battle for Russia. Anything, but to just say Russia lost the war, when even if you don't want to think that they're winning, it's just not true. It's just like there's no way you could look at it and say that that is an accurate statement. Some people have told me that like a month ago he said that the Ukraine shouldn't be launching offensives. I remember there was some report that came out. I think the Pentagon told Ukraine, "Look, you guys are just going to have to wait for a while till we can get your stuff together. Just try to be conservative with your ammunition and your tanks." And this is coming as like they said we're gonna send the what is it, the 14 leopards, or is it the 88 leopards? The 1488 leopards. We're gonna send the 1488 leopards to Ukraine, and then like now it looks like they aren't gonna send hardly any of them. We're gonna send the jets, but they're not gonna get the jets. They announced at the NATO conference we're completely out of ammo. We can't produce enough ammo for Ukraine. It's going to take us like 2 or 3 years to gear up and be able to meet the demand. And like, so NATO is saying this. Just keep this in mind. NATO is having a conference as he's talking right now, saying we can't meet Ukraine's ammunition needs, but the war is over. Everybody can go home. Like it's just fucking retarded. And like I feel bad, and I'm Canadian. I have to put up with this too. But I feel bad for the American people that your government has so little respect for you, for your tax dollars, for everything, that they put this garbage up here and they just lie to you so flagrantly. And I guess you could say, well, he's not lying; he's just retarded. Well, this is the dude who's leading the U.S. Army. This is the chief of the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he's talking on like with the defense secretary, who's Biden's appointee. So these guys both speak for the president. So I mean, either he is one of the worst military analysts or whatever. Like I'm not a military guy. Okay, I read a lot about military history. I'm not a professional soldier. I never served in the Canadian Army, but I don't see how anyone can look at this and say that the thing's over. And I guess people could say, well, you have to look at the wider context. You have to, yeah, but like, guys, let's just live in reality for a minute. Statements like this are said so that they will be picked up and they will be played. They're very aware, like these people aren't, they're stupid in some ways, but they're not in others. They know very well that if they say something like this, it's going to be picked up and repeated. And maybe they'll have deniability later where they say, oh, I didn't mean that. But it's very clearly a lie to try to instill confidence in the war. Although, once again, we have this Schrodinger's war where Russia's lost, it's over, everybody can go home. But we need to send another $10 billion or whatever. And they just expect you to take this. Once again, I don't care if you're pro-Ukraine or you're pro-Russia. if you're pro-Ukraine, you should probably be even more angry that these assholes are just lying to you. That they took your money, they said they were going to deliver, and they clearly don't have any idea like what's even going on. And like people just accept this and they say, "Oh, well, it's just the way that the government." No, like guys, you can't let this go. Like honestly, the amount of bullshit that's been spun by various governments about this is it's probably the most flagrant cases of lying I've seen in my lifetime. Like it's worse than some aspects of COVID. Like the kind of stuff that they've said about the Ukraine war. And what makes this whole thing worse is it's not like this isn't the first time. I want to show you an article. I actually hadn't even realized that this was General Milley, who is, like I said, the worst American commander since, I guess, George Armstrong Custer. Because I remembered this quote. I just didn't remember it was by him. So this was back in late July of 2021, about a month before the Afghan war was over and the president fled the country. And this is what General Milley had to say. Let's see here. The Taliban controls about half the district centers in Afghanistan. The insurgents appear to have strategic momentum. As of Wednesday, the Taliban controls 212 of Afghanistan's 419 district centers. That's a strategic jump from the 81 they controlled a month ago. It's more than double. It's more than that. Strategic momentum appears to be sort of with the Taliban. So taking over like over half the country in like a month is sort of. It's like it's I don't think the end game is written. I think that I'm confident in the ability of the Afghan government to handle with this. The two most important in combat multipliers is the will and leadership, and this is going to be a test of the will and leadership of the Afghan people. Well, I mean, it's great. Okay, still Milley pushed back on what he said was a narrative of the Taliban is propagating their inevitable victory, and it did turn out to be inevitable. Let's see here. Milley attributed some of the Taliban's recent gains to Afghan forces consolidating in order to protect population centers. That is a galaxy tier cope. Let's see here. And then he said there's a possibility of a negotiated outcome, complete Taliban takeover, although he earlier said that that wasn't going to happen. But, yeah, he was confident. It was like, it was sort of in the Taliban's favor. It's going to be a long war. It's going to be a difficult war. The Taliban are like, this is going to go on for a while, guys. Yeah, they took over half the country in like a month, but it's sort of in their favor. They're kind of winning. They're up by like 10 goals in the third. I don't know. I don't know anything about sports. They're up 150 supply, and on 4 bases, whereas their opponent has like 50 supply of roaches and is on 2 bases. I guess maybe to make a StarCraft analogy, but that's what we have to deal with. Is just nonsense like this, and they didn't fire this dude over that. They didn't go, "Hey, this is fucking retarded. You gave like the worst take I'd seen until this one." It's like this is the dude they want to lead the U.S. forces, and like Biden thinks this is acceptable, and to a lot of the American people, and God bless them, I have to live under Justin. This is acceptable to just be lied to like this. To have trillions of your tax dollars go to nonsense, like, and then just they don't even have the respect to give you like a half lie. I don't know what else to say. It's just fucking retarded. So God bless everybody. Hopefully this conflict will end sooner rather than later, but Who really knows at this point?